Colin. So this afternoon, we're going to talk about the role of reflection when it comes to metacognition.
Beyond all of the skills, the knowledge, the understanding, and the conceptual understanding, the greater task or ambition here is to develop lifelong learners who are metacognitively aware. Though that is our aspiration as a primary school. And so for every assessment task that children go through, we reflect on the experience, we reflect on the successes, and we feed forward to figure out ways that we can do that particular assessment task better, or how we as learners can grow and become better. That metacognitive piece is an imperative, it's a necessary part of growing all learners here at ISU.
I like how you said all learners here at ISU, because in fact, that is what we do with our adult learners as well, isn't it? We make sure we add an element of metacognition in all of our staff meetings.
So just to recap here, as we think about metacognition, what we're really talking about are learners thinking about their learning to become better at learning. I know that was a lot of learning.
Well, that is what it is. It's thinking about how you learn, thinking about how you learn best. It's what metacognition is.
And I think what we're saying is that becoming a better learner is as important as the skills and the knowledge that you might learn in a particular subject.
Sometimes that goes along with the attitudes of perseverance, just never giving
Grit,
up. Yep.
resilience. And this takes us to some of the assessment types that we use here at ISU in the primary. We differentiate between internal and external assessments. Let's run through a couple that we use here.
Let's start with the external. For some reason, they're easier for me to remember. Maybe it's because the list is shorter. But some of our external assessments are the ones that come from outside providers. A good example of this is the WIDA. The WIDA is a test given to all of our new students to determine their level of English and to see if they need additional support with the English language when they first join our school. So that's the WIDA test. It gives us clear, measurable data.
Another external assessment that we use is called the PM benchmark. This is a reading assessment. It gives us insight into what level a child is reading at, but more importantly than that, it tells us about their skills in comprehending a text, and it will take us through literal comprehension as well as inferential comprehension.
Then we have the MAP testing. The MAP testing is for students in grades 3, 4, and 5 in the primary school. This also extends to the MYP. And the MAP test will measure students' growth and development against themselves. So you'll see the current results and you can see how much progress they've made, and also amongst the students of the school and different groups of students that MAP that we can choose when we look at the data that it gives us. This measures students in reading comprehension, language usage, and mathematics.
Just to add to that, 2 additional external assessments that we conduct are math and writing. We do that to build a more holistic understanding of each learner. But on that idea of a holistic understanding or a deep understanding of learners, let's move to the internal assessments that we use almost every single day.
Well, the first one is one that I mentioned earlier, which is just observations. And so we watch students. Sometimes we are looking for specific behaviors or outcomes, and other times we're really just watching to see what we see.
Right, and observation and documentation is a huge, huge part of assessment in the early years. At the completion of every single unit of inquiry, you will have seen students go through a project or a journey, and many times that type of task is an internal assessment that we use to gauge understanding, skill development, and conceptual understanding.
Now, to show their understanding, students sometimes will be asked to do a PowerPoint presentation, sometimes a poster, sometimes a puppet show. Ideally, students will be given a choice of how they want to share their understanding. I remember one earlier this year where parents came in and the students of the PE class had to show their parents which exercises to do to warm up. And in being able to teach their parents, the PE teacher was able to ascertain how well they understood the information of the unit.
So we have projects or we have tasks like that. You will occasionally find tests or quizzes, but I caution parents and community members that tests and quizzes are a very, very narrow method to understand the skills or the knowledge that a child has acquired.
So when we're talking about internal assessments, there are a couple of words which our viewers may be heard, but they don't know what they mean. So the first two I'd like to review, Colin, are formative and summative. What are they? What's the difference between the two?
The difference between formative and summative is really how much chance for improvement the learner has after the assessment is finished. With a formative task, children have the opportunity to revisit their learning and improve it, to increase the definition of success that they have in that task. With summative, students have a lot less of a chance to revisit their work and to improve it. The difference here you would see in examples like a writing project, where the process is hugely important, versus a report card, where you don't necessarily come back and change the report card.
The other two terms that I'm going to talk about are self-assessment and peer assessment. Of course, we've mentioned a lot of times when the teacher is the one who's doing the observations, the teacher is the one doing the checklists, the teacher is the one following the rubric to determine how much student learning has occurred. But let's not forget that self-assessment is extremely important, and that is when the student can reflect on his or her learning and determine how well they've done. And of course, then that leads into peer assessment, which is when we have other students evaluating each other. And that can be a very powerful tool as well, all used in different contexts.
The role of the adult in schools as a facilitator of learning is really changing, and we are seeing how important self-assessment and reflection is, as well as peer assessment and peer conferencing.
My mom was a teacher. I don't know if she ever did anything like that when she was a teacher. She'd probably find it all very fascinating.
So this takes us to the real purpose or vision behind assessment at ISU in the primary. On the largest level, our ambition is to create self-directed learners who use self-adjustment to guide and drive their own learning in a regulated manner.
And I think that's what we mean when we say lifelong learners. Once you're able to regulate your learning and to know what are you good at, what do you need improvement with, how to do it, that's when you truly can become a lifelong learner.
So let me just echo that our aspiration with every child at ISU is to create self-directed and regulated learners who use self-adjustment to drive their learning and to develop into lifelong learners.
Can we also add here our connection to the mission, and that's to develop each person's unique potential.
And in that way, assessment is part of every single student's learning journey. And as they go up into upper primary, this prepares them for their transition to MYP, where many of the beliefs and practices that we've spoken about are the basis for assessment in the MYP.
And in the primary, where we want students to be knowledgeable, caring, and inquirers and principled in order to take action, that just carries on into the MYP as well, with a different type of action that we might see in the primary school.